Hey folks, it's me, the Bee, and welcome back to another review. When it comes to classical authors, opinions will and always differ. Charles Dickens, Hunter S. Thompson, the Bronte sisters, Jane Austen, Clive Barker, Bram Stoker, Mary Shelley, these are but some of the many examples of trailblazing writers when it comes to literary history. Literature is part of art, and as we well know, art is everywhere. It has penetrated our culture deeper than we could possibly imagine. And the truth of the matter is, art is what helps us give us a sense of identity. It gives us something to fall back on, to refer to be inspired by, to be frightened by. Art is an emotional as well as psychological journey. It affects all of us. So, this review isn't going to be a commentary on other people's opinions. In fact, it's going to be your very regular review. But what I'm going to review is my idea of a highly influential author in the horror circles. I am, of course, ladies and gentlemen, talking about the one, the only, the troubled, H.P. Lovecraft. As you can see, I am a fan. These books are really heavy. Alright, so a few words about H.P. himself. Howard Phillips Lovecraft was not a good person. It may have been a product of his time. You see, H.P., for lack of a better term, was a very troubled and psychologically scarred individual. He lived a very, I wouldn't necessarily say unpleasant life, but he lived a very alternative one. But one of the main criticisms that falls on Mr. Lovecraft, which I fully agree with, is the fact that Lovecraft was tremendously racist. And this point of view carries very heavily in his work. When it comes to describing people of colour or other ethnicities, he is not very charitable. And I quote, he actually refers to people of colour, particularly African American or people who come from an African area, niggers, or rather nigger men. Oh God, I feel terrible for saying that, but the truth of the matter is, Lovecraft was a very racist individual, and it was something that he actually was very proud of. And when it comes to separating the art from the artist, in cases like that, it is tremendously difficult. But this is not going to be necessarily an indictment of the man himself, even though I do feel every single controversy that he has, or rather he has gained through time since his death has been completely warranted. I'm just going to talk about his stories, or rather, the universe that he created. And that, of course, being the Cthulhu mythos and every other branch of it. I'm not going to review every single story that he has written because I will not be able to do that. I don't have the time, I don't have the inclination, and trust me, you do not want to hear me drone on about these things at length. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to basically talk about how H.P. Lovecraft has influenced me. I may make reference to a couple of his stories, but I'm mainly going to talk about my personal feelings about the Cthulhu mythos and the stories that he writes from a creative standpoint. So here we go. Horror is a beautiful thing. Horror can basically cover any sort of element of life. It can be tremendously, shall we say, social-minded. It can be abstract. It can be intellectual. It can be physical. It can be absolutely everything that human life is affected by. And in the case of Cthulhu mythos, it is about the beyond. Out there, beyond the human race, beyond human understanding, and beyond the veil. When it comes to contemplating about what sort of life we live, when it comes to Cthulhu and his creatures, created by H.P. Lovecraft, we are nothing. And honestly, think about it. What is scarier? The fact that you know these things are out there, or the fact that these things don't care a fig about you? You are a little parasite of dust. You are nothing to them. And if they were to come into our world, we would lose it. Anybody who looks upon any of these creatures will lose their minds, and human minds are so fragile, so easily manipulated. But at the same time, when it comes to seeing something, or rather hearing of something that wasn't meant for our eyes or our ears, that just makes us more curious. And in the case of the Cthulhu mythos, and basically everything about Lovecraft's work, no matter what, human curiosity is our undoing. The moment we see something, the moment we hear something that we cannot comprehend, that we weren't supposed to comprehend, we lose our minds because we don't know what to make of it. It's like the case of this. If you stare into the abyss stares back at you. And what happens when you fall into the abyss? You become nothing. You lose your identity, you lose your sense of self. And that to me is so frightening. The concept of oblivion brought forth by these ancient gods and these entities and the things they create. It's unimaginable, basically. Everything in H.P. Lovecraft's work just operates on the basis that, the unimaginable is what will destroy us. That and our curiosity. One such story being At the Mountains of Madness. At the Mountains of Madness is one of Lovecraft's most influential work, and the payoff is this. You have these scientists who go on an Arctic expedition, and they uncover the ruins of an ancient civilization that are of not terrestrial origin. And towards the end of the book, the scientists escape because basically they've had enough of what they've seen. So they escape from the ruins, but one person looks back and they see something so unimaginable that they go absolutely insane. There's nothing that specifies exactly what he saw. It is completely left up to the viewers, or rather, the reader's imagination. I wish it was the viewers. Can you imagine this? If Guillermo del Toro had been permitted to do At the Mountains of Madness, that would have been one of the biggest blockbusters when it comes to H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft hasn't seen that much film adaptations, but usually when it does, it's namely done by Mr. Stuart Gordon. And Stuart Gordon is a pretty goddamn good director, especially when it comes to Lovecraft. But I'm sorry, I am completely digressing from the literature here. Another such example of human beings setting eyes on something they were never ever supposed to see. Dagon. Dagon is a short story, and basically involves a maroon sailor who finds himself on this forbidden landmass. He doesn't know where it is, and he doesn't know why he's there. And when he's exploring, he comes across a monolith. And this monolith has hieroglyphics of a previous civilization on Earth. He doesn't know what these things are, but the fact is they look like fish people. And the major denouement of the story is when Dagon himself. Dagon is, from my knowledge, an Assyrian sea entity, and he comes out of the ocean and he wraps his enormous, muscular, smelly, fishy arms around the monolith, and the sailor, loses it. He runs away, he's laughing, he's crying, he is going through absolute emotional distress because of the fact he saw a god rise from the ocean and stare at him. It's just, it's unimaginable. I am using that word a lot, but yeah. Lovecraft deals with the intangible yet utterly consequential to our psychology. When you think about it, human beings are just so easy to torment. And you can see this in our regular everyday life. When it comes to leaders of cults, they use charisma and intimidation. And the fact of the matter is they prey on weak minds. When you think about it, Cthulhu and his kin are the cult leaders, and we are the soft-minded subjects. That's pretty frightening, isn't it? So what else can I say about H.P. Lovecraft that hasn't been said already? Absolutely nothing. Lovecraft is influential because of the work he's done, because of the fact that not all horror has to be absolutely literal. Horror comes from a sense of unease. It can be about, people exploding and being cut apart and everything like that, and there's a time and a place for that sort of stuff. But what matters, and this is something that I've always believed, and this is something that I have said in the past here, what really gets under your skin is the psychological. H.P. Lovecraft's work works, or rather operates, on a highly psychological, intellectual level. It gets down into the primal roots of your brain. Humans are very fragile and weak sort of creatures. We are made of this soft pink flesh. We have these two eyes in our heads that can't see all around. We may pride ourselves in being on the top of the food chain, but the only reason why this is so is because our brains are bigger. Or something. You know, and our opposable thumbs. Like, evolutionary theory has basically, you know, favored the human race in terms of, you know, why we are, you know, where we are. But the moment the status quo changes, we are at the bottom of the ladder. And when it comes to the creatures out there, beyond the veil, in the universe, watching us with these cold, analytical eyes, we were never at the top of the ladder. We may think we are, but the moment they come down into our dimension, we're at the bottom, baby. We are at the bottom, and that is where we're going to stay. So, H.P. Lovecraft. The man was not perfect. And separating the artist from the art is always a difficult thing, especially when the artist is a very controversial figure. But to me, his work, his stories, the ideas behind them, the ramifications his stories has had on our pop culture, basically every single horror author today that you can think of has been influenced by H.P. Lovecraft. And Lovecraft himself was influenced by Edgar Allan Poe and, you know, his own predecessors. Art just has a tendency to flow forth and go in circles simultaneously. Art is an Ouroboros. It goes around in a circle and it eats its own tail, but it never stops going. And that, to me, is what makes a highly influential and classical author. When people keep on coming back to you and citing your work and your sources and your inspiration, that is when you know a storyteller is firmly immortalized in the public consciousness. And not just public consciousness, but just in human history. I don't know where I was going with that. So thank you for listening to me ramble, guys, and as usual, I shall see you in the next video. And maybe next time you won't have to wait so long. Too bad. See you later, guys.